Hi, everybody. Welcome to the premiere podcast of Book Brothers. I'm Michael Zubal.
And I'm Tom Zubal.
And we are here at Zubal Books, 2969 West 25th Street in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, 44113.
We can be found online at www.zubalbooks.com. Drop us an email at info@zubal.com, or give us a call, 216-241-7640. If you have perhaps a book collection for sale, or maybe you have books you'd like to have evaluated, we're here for you.
The purpose of Book Brothers podcast is to share with you our experiences in the wild and wacky book trade.
Along the way, we'll introduce you to Nobel laureates, schizophrenics, other colleagues in the business,
and various and sundry colorful personalities that we deal with on a daily basis. Now, Tom and I have been buying and selling books our entire professional careers. We never applied for this job. We didn't go to a job interview. We weren't recruited. The fact of the matter is we were born into the book business. Our father... Yeah, that does sound like a prayer, doesn't it? Our dad, John Zubal, began buying and selling books at a very early age.
As a kid in the 1950s, he would go from bookshop to bookshop, looking for works by his favorite author, Edgar Rice Burroughs, author of course, Tarzan of the Apes and other classics like Pellucidar,
Thuvia, Maid of Mars,
At the Earth's Core,
John Carter of Mars. Hey, I wonder if John Carter and Thuvia ever hooked up.
I wonder if they hooked up, and if there's a baby Carter of Mars. Anyway, so the old man, well, at the time he wasn't the old man, he's just a kid. So he amasses this huge collection of Burroughs books, also known as herbdom to the heads.
Yeah, and he got to critical mass and decided, well, I better sell off at least some of my duplicates, if not other pieces. And after a series of months, maybe 6 to 8 months, he made about $10,000.
Now, wait a second. How do you sell books back in 1956?
I think you put ads in the back of fanzines and trade journals like A.B. Bookman, and you get mail orders with checks and cash in them.
Okay, no Craigslist. All right.
No Craigslist, no credit cards, no PayPal. Yeah, and at that point, when he had bankrolled that venture, he decided, wow, what a great way to make money on the side. After graduating from high school, John enrolled at Fordham University in the Bronx. That gave him access to Booksellers Row on Broadway in New York City. That was a section of Broadway that was rife and loaded with secondhand bookstores.
Also, while he was at Fordham, something very important happened. He went to a dance one night with a girl from the Bronx that ended up being our mother, although we didn't know it at the time.
Well, factually, he met her at the dance. He didn't go with her to the dance.
Well, I don't know everything.
We weren't there, but that's the story I heard.
So John and Marilyn fall in love. He whisks her back to the glorious land of Parma, Ohio, and they settle down there to start a family. I think at that time he began teaching at some colleges around the area, and also, of course, building his book collection, which at this time was taking over the home.
Yeah, that's right. The garage was loaded with shelves and books and journals, as was the breezeway. I don't know if folks today know what a breezeway was, but a breezeway connected the house with the garage, and our breezeway was loaded with journals that I used to jump over with my friends and knock over and get yelled at. Let's fast forward to 1973. John and Marilyn have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. Beside the house and garage, John has 5 small warehouses on the near west side of Cleveland, also loaded with books and journals. One day, he and Marilyn were driving down West 25th Street, and they saw the for sale sign in the front of the old Church World Press Publishing building. They looked at each other and said, hey, this would be a great place to consolidate all this stuff, clean out the house, and actually park the cars in the garage.
So they took a big chance. They bought this massive building, and they consolidated. They loaded everything in here. They built hundreds of shelves. They bought thousands of pear boxes and other fruit boxes from old fruit vendors at the West Side Market. Is that factual?
Yeah, back then, people carted fruits and vegetables around in wooden crates. That ended at about 1976 when they converted to cardboard. But prior to that, we collected thousands of those boxes, and they're perfect for books and journals.
Yeah, so now we go into the 1980s. The business is thriving. It's really the heyday of the back issues market. There was obviously no digitization at the time, and John and Marilyn had a really good nose for which journals to get from libraries and which journals were desired by other libraries as well as collectors and other researchers.
Yeah, back then I'd say 80% of the business was medical, scientific, and scholarly journals, and 20% was secondhand and old books, right?
I think so, yeah. In fact, I think on a future podcast we should dedicate a segment to the journals trade. We could talk about people like Howard Johnson, Jerry Alper, Krauss, and other people that were players in that game, which is now forgotten about. Nonetheless, all the while he was still amassing a wonderful collection of rare books, scholarly books, and collectible books, which just kept growing and growing and growing. And fortunately, our father had the foresight to realize that you can't manage an inventory that big with pencil and paper. So very early on, he was an adapter of technology as a way of inventory control. I remember being a kid in 1980, 81, 10, 11 years old, and going into a room here at the warehouse and seeing these two massive boxes, which were TRS-80 hard drives. I think each one was 2 megabytes, but they took up what seemed to be half the room.
Yeah, that was like UNIVAC. You had to keep the air conditioner buzzing throughout the summer, and you had the window open during the winter because the damn thing would overheat, and that wasn't good.
Yeah. He used to print his own catalogs. He owns a printing press, telex machine, had a massive fax machine back then in the early 80s.
Boy, those things were noisy.
They were noisy and stinky. I think you can get high from some of those fumes. Nonetheless, he kept up with technology, and the company kept growing. And in 1994 or so, we posted our books at the first online bookseller site, which was called Interlock. And we took about 8,000 listings, shot them up there. Monday morning rolled around, orders came in, and we said, I think we should do more of this.
Yeah, so then we applied to Abe Books, and back then there was a company called BiblioFind that has since been subsumed by some other entity, and eventually got into Amazon and other book-selling sites, aside from our own Zubal.com.
And today, at any one time, we have over 160,000 catalog books, and I kid you not, close to 1 million books we have yet to even touch.
And John and Marilyn still work with us on a daily basis. Most mornings they get in before I arrive, and some afternoons they leave after I head home.
Well, I think that's because you come in too late and leave too early.
Hey, you got to golf.
Yeah, you got to golf.
Well, we also have 10 non-family employees who help in the cataloging and order fulfillment.
Well, I think that brings everybody up to date with our little brief history there. I think in future podcasts we'll probably cover some of this history in more detail. All right, welcome back. This is the segment of the show called Book Hauls, where Michael and I will talk a little bit about our travels around the country buying book collections. Now, last week, Michael was on the East Coast, and he had a very successful trip. He brought back a van full of about 5,000 books. I helped him unload it on Monday, and they were simply gorgeous books.
If it ain't loaded to the ceiling, you ain't been doing the dealing.
And you was doing the dealing. What was the... Tell me a little about the trip.
You know, went up and down the East Coast, highlighted by visiting a guy in New Jersey. His name was Ben, and he claimed to have 2,000 books at his house. So I pull up, I ring the doorbell. A lady opens the door, pleasant lady, and she greets me. I introduce myself. She greets me and tells me she's the housekeeper. Come on in. So I think nothing of it, and I walk in the house, and shortly Ben comes down, he greets me warmly, and then proceeds to introduce his wife, who was, in fact, the woman who said she was the housekeeper. So right then and there, I was like, what the heck's going on here? Okay, I had a good laugh. A good laugh, right. All right, let's look at the books. So we go upstairs, and there's 1,500 books in a really nice study on shelves, really not dusty, clean, good-looking books, and there's 500 books in the basement. I say to the guy, hey man.
Now wait a second, hold on. Are these Reader's Digest condensed novels? I mean, do you like most of the books?
I like 90% of the books. These are good scholarly, important books in this field. And I say to him, all right, you got 1,500 books up here, and you didn't think to put an elevator in? So we quickly made a deal, which made me happy because I like to do things quickly. And I head off to a later appointment, and I tell the guy I'll pick the books up on my way back to Cleveland in a couple days. 2 days later, I'm about 2 hours away from his house in New Jersey, and I call him up and I say, all right, I'll be there at 2 o'clock, which he's very happy to hear. And a few seconds later, my phone's ringing again, and it's his wife calling me back. And she says, Michael, you're coming at 2 o'clock. Is this lunch or dinner? And I say, what are you talking about? It's neither. I'm picking up the books. And she says, no, you have to eat something. Is it lunch or dinner? I said, it's neither. You're not feeding me. Don't do anything special. She says, listen, I'll make you finger food, okay? I say, great. Finger food's fine. And she said, that way, if you don't like it, you can give me the finger. This is the kind of person that I was dealing with.
Body,
funny. All right. So I get to the house. And I start with upstairs with the 1,500 books, and I just got to do it. So I'm hauling the books down, load after load after load, and I'm loading the van up. And I finish with the upstairs, and I take a break, and I'm drinking some water. And the missus says to me, you work like a robot. So I'm flattered. I say, well, I have no other choice, but I do have a carrot on the stick. And she says, what does that mean? And I said, well, when I finally get home tonight, I'll be in my hot tub with a single malt scotch in my hand, recovering. And she says to me, oh, you only drink single malt scotch? I say, no, I'm ambibulous. And that, of course, is a highfalutin H.L. Mencken word, and I have to define what ambibulous means, which I say, no, I drink everything. And she says, oh, just like me.
2 peas in a pod. I'm sure was the husband happy about all this? I mean, was he cool?
Oh, he was laughing nonstop.
Oh, okay.
Aside from all this good cheer and joviality, she did make me finger food. She made poached salmon, roasted chicken, finger sandwiches, and homemade guacamole with little pieces of corn in it. So it was the best food experience on a book haul I've ever witnessed.
It sounds yummy, but I'm wondering, maybe she thought you really overpaid for the books and she was trying to give back a little to you since they maybe took you for a ride. Is that possible?
I feel that I always overpay when I buy books.
I know, that is our problem. Well, thank you very much for sharing that uplifting story with us. Is there by chance an epilogue to this?
As a matter of fact, there is. I got the van loaded up, and while I was saying my goodbyes, the missus presents me with a gift-wrapped package the size of a small suitcase. And I say, what the hell is this? She says, you travel all the time. You never bring your son any gifts. I want you to take this and give it to him and tell him it's from you. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's from you. I'm going to give it to him, but he's going to write you a thank you card. Aside from that, she hands me a tin from Trader Joe's of chocolate-covered espresso beans, which helped on the ride back to Cleveland.
That is an awesome, awesome experience. On the next episode of Book Hauls, I'm going to share my experience on my last trip to the West Coast, which wasn't quite as comfortable and cheery due to some unforeseen circumstances. But we'll save that for next time. Well, thanks for tuning in to the first episode of Book Brothers. Not only do Michael and I do this for a living, well, not podcasts, but sell books, but we also play in a jazz trio around Cleveland called Slap. So if you ever see Slap is gigging, come on out and say hello and enjoy the music.
And remember, when you have books for sale or you're looking for a special book, come to ZubalBooks.com.
And finally, don't buy from bookjackers.
Think books, think Zubal.
Bye-bye.
Book Brothers is produced at the Zubal Books warehouse and offices, 2969 West 25th Street, Cleveland, Ohio. Musical introduction, interludes, and outro are written and performed by